Hello, 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 my friends. Today I want to talk to you about 3 ways to improve your at-home resistance training. I know a lot of people feel a lot of barriers to resistance training, and one of the easiest ways for people to get a little bit more resistance training in is to simply do it from home. Now let's dive in. When it comes to resistance training, our main goals are either strength or hypertrophy. So I'm gonna start with this video off with a disclaimer that while training at home is a fantastic low barrier to entry way to improving your strength and or hypertrophy, you will be limited by the weights that you have. Now, the tips I'm gonna give you today can help you improve the toughness, the difficulty level, or the efficacy of what you are doing with the weights you do have at home. But over time, you might need more bands, more weights, and or heavier weights to continue to improve. There's only so much you can do with a little bit for so long. But that doesn't mean that you can't make a lot of progress with that at home and or that the resistance training that you're doing isn't benefiting you in the process. So don't be discouraged, but let's start with tip number 1. Number 1 is going to be simply adding a slower tempo. Slowing down the movement in what you're doing is going to allow you to go through that range of motion slower and make the weight that you do have feel more challenging. So let me show you what I mean. If you are training at home and you are going to say be doing a split squat, I got some weight here, but I'm gonna show you with body weight, and you wanna go and do that split squat. So you're setting up your split squat here, and maybe in the gym when you're weighted, you're kind of going through steady and controlled, but a little bit faster. But you're training from home and you feel a little bit limited by the weights that you have, you simply wanna add a tempo. So a tempo is essentially a slower count on the eccentric, the lowering, or slower count on the concentric, the upper part, or the raising up movement of a lift. And so what you can do is instead of going like this, you can go 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. And you can slow down the tempo of that lift. And let me tell you when I say that you will feel a burn. Slowing down that tempo will make it a little bit more challenging. It will add a little bit more of a slower eccentric and or controlled aspect to that lift. And will allow you to make the weights that you do have feel a little bit more challenging. So for example, say I have my 20-pound dumbbell here, and say I'm split squatting, I don't know, 45s in the gym. I actually have no idea what my split squat is right now, but we're making an example that's bigger. 20 is actually a pretty good amount of weight. So I'm gonna hold my 20-pound dumbbell here, and I'm gonna same thing. So adding a tempo of about 2 to 3 seconds has been shown to be kind of more effective for hypertrophy. Longer and slower than that, you're probably just wasting your time. You'd be better off increasing reps or load, but adding a tempo can make the weight that you do have a little bit more challenging. Tip number 2 is gonna be adding a pause. So similar to our tempo, this is a way that's gonna improve the time under tension and or how long we're spinning in different parts of the movement. So let's go back to our handy dandy favorite split squat. So we're getting on our split squat here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go descend into that. But once we get to the bottom, we're gonna pause. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So adding a pause at the bottom is a great way to add difficulty to your movements, especially if you're doing body weight and or lower weights than you might be able to do in the gym. It will essentially make that weight harder, and it will allow you to improve strength in those in ranges of motion without using things like a bounce and or like moving your muscles or hurling weights forward. It allows you to kind of keep the true tension of the muscle doing the movement, and allows you to also work on some isometrics and pausing in those bottom ranges of motion. And it's a way to simply just make it harder when you don't have as much weight at home. So if you're unable to increase the weight because you don't have as much weight at home, simply increase the reps up to 30. Now, once you start to get to 30 reps of a movement, that is where I would suggest that you absolutely need to be buying more weights or finding heavier objects to move around the house, or you can continue to train at that 30 rep range and or with the weights that you have, adding increased tempo, pauses, things like that to increase the difficulty. But once you start to get to those 20, 25, 30 reps and things are feeling like a 5 or a 6 out of 10, that's when we wanna say, hey, maybe I need a little bit more weight. You wanna get a heavier kettlebell, you wanna get some more dumbbells, or you wanna add some bands to add some resistance to these to improve how heavy, or increase how heavy they are relative to your movements. So say I have these 20s and I can do bicep curls, and my program is doing 3 sets of 8 to 10 bicep curls, right? But these are pretty light for me, right? And so for me, I'm not gonna just stop at that 8, I'm gonna keep going. And say I keep going with the weights that I do have, and I'm able to do 20 reps on each arm before it feels like an 8 out of 10, or I could only do 2 more reps possible left in me. So I hope that helped. Simply, when you're training from home, the biggest issue for most people is just lack of weight. But if you can make that weight feel heavier, improve difficulty, add a challenge, and or understand how to develop muscle and or strength within your home, you can continue to make progress with a lot of things. Keep in mind, you can continue to increase reps, sets, and or load in many different ways, but simply if you're starting with doing 2 sets of something, you can go to 3, you can go to 4 sets in order to increase the amount of total volume that you're doing to elicit hypertrophy. Now, again, strength is gonna be a little bit harder to develop at home because strength is largely neuromuscular, and it has to do with improving, the amount of force that you're moving, and at some degree, you might be stronger than, say, your 20-pound dumbbells, but it doesn't mean you can't keep making progress at home. And for many people who are beginners or don't have a large history in strength training, that weight that they have at home or even their body weight, they can get stronger with it. But as you progress over time, you're probably gonna need more. That doesn't mean you have to go to a gym unless you want to, but you can continue to train at home with using these tactics or increasing your weight and then applying these tactics to that increased weight over and over and over again. Again, if you found this helpful, go ahead and subscribe, leave me a comment below. And if you're looking for a training program to help you do this or that you can do at home, check out my programs, the Lyss method. We have a beginner program and or all of our programs, which can be substituted for dumbbells to be done at home to meet you where you're at. You don't need a gym. You can substitute everything out to do from the comfort of your home. If you're looking for a program that programs you appropriately for strength, hypertrophy, and or your goals, and that can be paralleled with running, conditioning, cardio, all the things that we love. So I hope that was helpful, and I will see you guys on the next video.